Hi everybody. So, sorry if I tremble a bit, if my voice trembles a bit. It's just because I'm nervous. Like, I don't know why, because I met this guy like maybe 8-9 years ago at a party, and we've been doing a lot of stuff with Raindance. He taught a couple of classes. He's been doing this interview before, not about AI, but the Raindance interview. He's been a guest before, and we've been talking about a lot of filmmaking and independent filmmaking. And you know what I did? Like, I did my homework. Probably you guys don't know, but my background is in journalism, which I never practiced, because I learned early it's just all corrupt, so I didn't want to get in that pie. I got into marketing, and then I married an actor, and I went back to my first love, which was writing. And now, as a good journalist does, I prepared for this interview, and I thought, it's an interview about AI, what should I do? So I prompted ChatGPT to give me questions. And he came up with 10 questions. I'm like, you bastard. Okay. And then I said, okay, I need to prompt again. And I'm like, I just played with ChatGPT for a while, which I've been doing for the last 3 years. Helpfully, sometimes, successfully, and most of the time it's just like, as a writer, I started prompting about writing. So I was like, oh, write me a story about a turtle and a bunny for my daughter. And he wrote it in like 3 seconds. And then I prompted about, oh, write me a story about those two in Christmas setting, and then Halloween. And I'm like, oh, it's just repeating itself. It's boring. It's not really writing, good quality writing. Like, yeah, it's nothing special. And I was like bored. And so I got like 35 questions. I'm not gonna do them all. Sorry, I know it's crazy. And also because Jeffery is like a rock star. So he has charisma. He knows a whole lot. Like, I'm talking a lot right now because I know I won't get a chance to talk in the interview anymore, so it's just the introduction. But we're gonna start in like the proper journalistic way. I'll ask a question and then he'll take over, and then we'll see where the road leads us. I structured my questions after I was fighting with AI, and I structured them in like, okay, I'm gonna do a scientific part of the questions, I'm gonna do a filmmaking part of the questions, and I'm gonna do a spiritual part of the questions. Pretty good, but bottom line, they all kind of sound the same. It's just different wording, and the idea is the same. So I'll read a few, but I would like to start at the beginning, right? Guga, shh, mommy's talking now. Sorry. So you have a business of science in logic and computation from the
Bachelor's, for sure. Yeah, it's a degree.
A Bachelor of Science in logic and computation from the Carnegie Mellon University, which you obtained in the late 80s. You don't look it, so it's fine. Where you said you delved into the burgeoning field of AI. What brought you there to study that?
Hi, thank you very much for that lovely introduction, and of course, thanks to Raindance for sponsoring this. First off, before I answer your question, one thing that I think is important for me, as I'm a storyteller first, I'm a filmmaker first, and I've been looking for 30 years. I've been watching this revolution coming at us. First it was far away, and then it's getting closer. It's like, maybe this is going to happen. Oh, what looks like it's going to happen. Oh my God, it's happening soon. It's happening now, right? So it's been this. I've been watching this come for a very long time, and at a certain point, I see this as a huge transition, very important transition for all of humanity, and it basically dwarfs anything I do in film. To me, this is helping us. If there's anything I can do to kind of spread a message that's positive, that can help us go to positive outcomes, because there's negative outcomes. The future can go lots of different ways, right? And so I know there's a lot of fear out there, and I think there's a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of propaganda, honestly, about this technology, a lot of misapprehensions. So I started feeling like I needed to speak There's a lot of places where I was like, oh my God, they have this wrong. I need to speak. I need to talk about what's possible. So I felt this urge. So thank you so much for giving me a platform to talk about what is, I think, is so important, to all of us, to humanity, but to me. To get into it, I was, a smart kid growing up in Paris, and if you're a smart kid growing up in Paris, they have you go into math and physics and programming. It was just kind of natural. And then I had an uncle who was in computer science, so they you're going to be an engineer, a computer engineer, and the best engineer in school was Carnegie Mellon at the time, so one of the top. So I just kind of applied there, and I was there as a computer engineer, and I really I hadn't grown up yet. I was just kind of following a track that my parents had laid down for me. At some point at Carnegie Mellon, at university, away from my parents, my eyes opened, and you can watch Lissa's trip to get a sense of what might have happened to me, but I had certain experiences that opened my mind. And one really big experience, actually, I want to show you this. I was sitting in a electrical engineering course. We were talking about transistors and how to build transistors. It was a really boring electrical engineering course, honestly, about, material sciences. And, but they drew this curve. Showing there's this thing called Moore's Law, which basically that every year the number of transistors, or every 18 months actually, the number of transistors you could fit on a chip was doubling. So Moore came up with this in the 1950s. He was the head of Intel at the time. He just noticed there was this trend where it's just they were constantly able to double the number of transistors on a chip. And so when I saw this in 1989, it kind of blew my mind. I just saw this curve, and it's if this keeps going, an exponential curve, I just started, the implications started hitting me. And I just couldn't think of anything else. That was the end of that class for me. Because at a certain point in that curve, it intersects with, you're talking about computational power. So at a certain point, that curve is going to intersect with what human capability is. Because I was always a materialist. I always thought human beings are just very complicated machines, honestly. I mean, we can talk about the philosophy, spiritual side of that. So it was just obvious to me in that moment that unless something in physics was going to stop that progress, we're going to just collide and go right past all human endeavor, all human capability. And you could just look at the curve and you're 2030. That's when it is. If it keeps going, right? And so over the years, I was constantly watching, electrical engineering, all the reports. Is Moore's Law slowing down? Is there any slowdown in this? Is it, they kept on saying, oh, we're never going to be able to go past. There are constantly these reports. Moore's Law is dead. And then, a year later, they'd be like, well, it isn't actually. And it would just kept on going. And so this is what it looks like. Here, I'll show you. Oop. Let's see here. Yeah, so this is what it looks like now. Okay, so this curve is today. So when I saw this originally, it ended here in what I can't see quite well here. But this is 1980s or something here, 80s. So when I saw it, this was the end of the curve. All right. Now it had done all this. Now this curve looks like a line, doesn't look like a curve, but you have to understand this is 10 times. Each of these levels is 10 times more. Okay, so this is what's called a logarithmic scale. So this is an exponential line, even though it looks like a line. Each step on this line is 10 times higher, 10 times more, 10 times more, 10 times more, 10 times more. Okay, so this is where we are now. Okay, this is basically for every dollar how much computational capacity. So basically this shows that it has not stopped rising exponentially since then, and we're basically at that point now. Basically, the human mind is estimated to be around an exaflop in computational power by those who study this, which is a very, very powerful computer. Oh my gosh, it's an incredible achievement. What we did with evolution, or God did, or whatever, this thing that we have in our heads is extraordinary. But, now the current crop of supercomputers are maybe 4 to 5 times more powerful than one human brain. Right? We've now, the supercomputers, not the computer at your desk. The supercomputers are now and you have to assume that because it's evolution, it's probably the most efficient structure. There's probably all kinds of inefficiencies inside the brain because it's kind of chaos to evolution. So if a computer is 4 to 5 times more powerful as it is today, it's quite possible it could, and by the way, moves much faster. It's not biochemical, right? These are like circuits that go much, much faster, have all kinds of other advantages. They don't have to fit inside a human head and, work on like steak, so you can power them with fusion. Yeah. So there's incredible advantages. So basically we're in this place right now where it's just now happening. Like that thing people call the singularity. Like we've been watching the intelligence of these things go from like, it's so stupid, it's not even as stupid as a bug, right? It's not even as smart as a bug, it's not even as smart as a mouse, it's not even as smart as a puppy. It's more, and now but this thing is boom, and it's gonna go right past us. So we're kind of on that page when you're in the car and you're watching the German Saab, the Audi, go past you, but that Audi is accelerating 10 times per year. Okay, so it's more like a rocket. It's a rocket that's passing us as we speak right now, today, okay, in all kinds of places. And so, is this going to have huge implications for our society? Over the years, I've been shocked and amazed to watch economists and people who are specialists say, oh, absolutely not. There's always going to be more jobs. It's not possible, it's not going to really change anything. And I was always certain that, and it is, like we're starting to see it all over the place, and over the next 5 years, it's gonna be something we're gonna be dealing with on a crisis level, okay? Because it's gonna fundamentally change, I say, I'm happy to discuss it with you guys, but this is gonna fundamentally change the nature of society, the nature of how we do economics, in a way that we haven't seen maybe since the beginning of agriculture, maybe since the discovery of fire. Okay, we're going way, way back to find something similar for humanity. Okay, so this means I think it's rational. Who here is afraid of this? Okay, I think we should all be afraid. I'm scared because it's very rapid change, and change is scary, and there's a lot of bad ways it could go. But I'm also incredibly excited because of like all the good ways it could go, and that's what I want to talk about.
So,
yeah.
So you started in this because you were kind of encouraged by your family, right? You went into this direction, science direction, and from that graphic, how did you end up directing your first movie in 2004?
I realized I skipped a part of your first question, so. After seeing that kind of blew my mind. I didn't want to talk about transitions anymore. This is all I was interested in. And I was lucky enough that Carnegie Mellon had maybe one of the leading departments in AI at the time, which is called Logic and Computation. It was in the philosophy department, because this is it was so impractical. You couldn't do any of this. All you could talk about it was the math of it or the philosophy behind it. You couldn't actually practice it because the tech is like, you're going to need supercomputers that you couldn't even imagine in the 80s, but now we have them. It's amazing. So I entered this field, and I very quickly discovered neural networks and was very excited about the potential of neural networks. But my advisor didn't see it that way. This was like unorthodox at the time. And at the same time I was discovering film. So, and I realized I couldn't really, I developed conclusions about this technology, but realized it was too early to do anything with it. It's just, and instead of going into research and engineering, I chose to go into film, which my father was a filmmaker too, and I grew up in film, so, and to just be a storyteller, but all the time keeping an eye on this tsunami coming at us. Yeah.
That you saw coming.
Yeah, I saw coming. My advisor, actually, when I presented my paper on neural networks, which at the time in 1990, I was suggesting like a neural network that would be in a house, that would gradually train on the inhabitants of the house and get to know the people and sort of adjust, be able to control air conditioning and windows and doors to create drafts and kind of create the ideal situation, kind of get to know you and be like a housemaster for you, for the family. And so that, and my advisor thought this was a cute idea, but he's like, you can't prove it mathematically. These ideas, these neural networks are going to somehow magically be smart. He just poo-pooed that idea. It wasn't hard math, hard science. And he allowed me to pass. He said, I'll give you a C as long as you go into film. Stay out of AI. And I agree. So there you go. So that's how I went into film. I was kicked out of the AI world, as it were. Yes.
So after you graduated late 80s and started immediately in film, transitioned into film, and since then up until now, when did your path cross again with AI? Like, did you have certain moments when you met with this monster that was haunting you?
Well, I wrote about it. So I wrote screenplays, right, that involve AI and have these heady ideas. But it wasn't until I reached a certain point, and this is other types of AI technologies that you all take for granted probably now. Like things like autofocus on cameras, or these amazing stabilizers we have now, or drones, right? All this is like possible due to machine learning. And these are like early, advances in AI that made these technologies possible. And so I was, incredible noise reduction. You can do in DaVinci Resolve. With the amazing tracking you can do in DaVinci Resolve to basically relight in post. Or there's all these numerous places where AI had created, this is called specialized AI, like AI that's good at noise reduction, AI that's good at flying a drone, like that's all it can do. It's called, specialized AI. So there have been huge advances in those, and it occurred to me as a filmmaker that all of them together, constellating, might make new ways to make movies possible. Like in the same way that the French New Wave was made possible by more sensitive film stocks and lighter cameras, right? And a kind of willingness from the audience to look at a more raw image also. But there were evolutions in technology that made the New Wave possible. I thought maybe evolutions in technology had happened that made some kind of other new wave. So I started experimenting with Lissa's trip, what if you could make a movie? Because to me, in my mind, the singularity means all jobs are replaced. You don't need to hire people anymore. You can. And the other thing I was wrestling with was I'd had the privilege to work on a couple indigenous-led productions where I was an editor or visual effects supervisor. And what really became apparent is how patriarchal and hierarchical we do things. We're stuck in these rigid hierarchies, and you hire a bunch of people to hire them from the neck down to exploit their labor to make your vision come true, use this mechanical machine to shoot. You're shooting reality, you're changing reality to meet your eye. All this seemed all of a sudden, working on an indigenous-led movie, really colonial and European and male and patriarchal, and all this stuff was very hard to avoid. And I started thinking maybe some of the problems with some of the films that I've been working on is that we're stuck in these hierarchies and these ways of doing things. So what if you could make a movie and free yourself of this? What if instead of having to be Bach, come up with this amazing plan, this amazing composition, then you need all these musicians and you need this army to go deploy this thing. What if instead you did work like a jazz band? You get artists, just a few actors together, and you go and you spontaneously play and create. What is possible then? And so Lissa's trip started that way. So I was exploring kind of the advantages of specialized AI, and I just had a backpack with a Ronin stabilizer and a drone in it, and a little camera with autofocus. And I worked with just directly with actors, and would bring the footage back and get I was sort of shocked by how good the performance is. Good performance is person being real and authentic. And you take away the crew, and you take away all the gear, and you take away the script and give them the freedom to say what they want, and suddenly they're authentic, and they're listening, and it just suddenly the performances were working, and it was a very exciting discovery. So that was what it was about at first, and then while I was in post on it, it's a story about an actress who takes a lot of LSD, and then has I'm going to show you guys a little. She tries to get to audition anyway, basically, and has all these epiphanies in LA. There's these sequences where she's high on acid walking through LA, and I started seeing there are these papers, because I'm still following this technology, papers from MIT or Shenzhen, China, about these cool image processing tricks, these cool things they can do. And it's a scientific paper, so you could just download the code and instantiate it on your own GPU and just boom, run it and see what it was kind of hard to do. You had to have a bit of a hacker mentality at first. Now all this is really easy. But so I started deploying some of this stuff, and getting incredible results. And this movie's done pretty well in the festival with me, for me. Let me show you a little bit of it. So this is a sequence where she just starts tripping. So, you know, this goes on. I don't want to get too deep into this, but because there's a lot to talk about. But so I started, like, that was the first time I started using visual stuff, and this was like about 4 years ago. And this was really kind of very hard to do. It required a kind of high level. You had to understand Python. You had to be in a Linux operating environment. You need to have a whole stack. Like, it was very buggy. To keep it all working, all the versions had to match of every single library you had. Like, it was very easy to have it break, right? And then suddenly they would upgrade the code and nothing would work. So it was very challenging to use at the time. But as I was working on it, they started to upgrade. Now there's these amazing platforms like Runway, which we can talk about, which allow you to do much more sophisticated things than this.
Yeah, okay. So, do you want to talk more about the experience with the film, or what would you like to talk about general, the importance of AI in filmmaking and how can it alter the creative process?
So one thing, so this is like, I would say, a post-singularity movie, in the sense that I was able to make a movie that has a lot of sophisticated things happening, but I was able to do it, like, basically replace a huge number of jobs with, like, robotics. And what happened as a result, what I noticed creatively, was a freeing up creatively. It wasn't like, oh, now we're not being creative because there's AIs involved, right? On the contrary, all these anchors that were stopping our creativity, like, where are the trucks gonna park? Well, you don't have anywhere for the trucks to park here, so you're not shooting at this location. Like, that kind of thing, snip, snip, gone. I could shoot anywhere I wanted, right? You know, all these, like, scheduling issues. Oh, like, what if the weather's crap? Or your actor has something else they want to do or something. Well, you know what? No problem. We'll just reschedule because it's just me and the actor. So it just created this flexibility. There's all these places where it opened up more creativity. And I really think that that's kind of, for me, the big lesson about what I call post-singularity filmmaking, about filmmaking that deploys these technologies and gets away from these hierarchies and this need to hire an entire army of people, is that you actually have, as a creator, an explosion of freedom that occurs. And which is very, for me, as somebody who's been making movies for a long time, it's very exciting. You know, there's a lot of movies I want to make that, none of the movies I want to make I've been able to make. I've been making movies that other people want me to make, that they'll pay for it. You know? So I feel like, and this gets to, like, an important distinction. People go, what about jobs? All right? Because I am here, sitting here saying that all jobs are going away in, like, very soon, like in less than 5 years. I really think that they're all jobs. You know, it doesn't mean that it won't be possible to find someone who wants to give you money. I don't know, anything's possible. There's crazy people all over the place. But I mean, just the economic rationale for it isn't going to be there anymore. And so, you know, and so one thing I've noticed is in my so-called career, like if you look me up on IMDb, you'll see I've directed 18 feature films, for instance. So it looks like I've had a career, and I have, right? But each of those movies, almost all of them, maybe not my first film, or even my first film, is filled with these compromises, right? Where I had to, you know, try to meet the market somewhere, or I had to make sure it made enough money to, like, justify all the craziness we're doing, right?
Please an exec.
Yeah, please an executive, right? Or there's all these places where you're constrained as an artist, right? And so this job I had was often, even though I love making movies and I was delighted to get to direct a movie and hooray, there's also a part where I was, like, sickened because I wasn't, like, being my true authentic self as an artist. And there's always, like, compromised. You know, I'd be working on a movie, I'd want to have my message, some message or creative thing I want to do, and that was subversive. Like, I'm actually not being professional when I do that, right? I should just do the script as it is, not try to put my own stuff in it, right? Or I'd be doing something that is like a creative venture that I love, but then I'm compromising that to make sure it makes money or something. So I was constantly
Or
compromised.
save money.
Right? And so the nature of these jobs they want to hold on to is they're jobs for someone else, okay? Like they're the jobs for the man. And it's not, you're never the man. It's someone else is the man that you're working for. And it's a type of, if you work with people who've been in the industry for quite a while, they'll cross it, they go, living the dream, very sarcastically. Because they all feel like they're in a kind of prison. Right? Even like,
Aren't we?
right? It's like a kind of prison, and we pretend that we're free, right? So, so I'm not a big fan of the jobs. I'm a big fan of like the creative ventures. Like to me, that's what's exciting. The question is like, how do you, obviously the next question is like, well, am I going to end up living under a bridge, right? And I think that's, when we talk about fear around AI, I think that's what it's really about, is like, am I going to end up, like, am I going to be able to feed my children? Am I going to end up under a bridge somewhere? Like, am I going to be able to afford the crazy rent in the city? Like, how is this going to work if there's no jobs? Like, that's how I make money. If there's no jobs, how am I going to possibly live? Like, this is like, but the thing that you're afraid of here, that's not AI, okay? I just want to point to this. It's capitalism. It's a labor-based economy, right? It's not, that's not artificial. Artificial intelligence is the thing that's going to break that, right? And so, I think much like slaves, like when Moses came and said, to go to a Jewish metaphor, when Moses came and said, I'm going to free you all, there were some people who were like, well, I don't know about where are we going to go? You're going to go in the desert? How are we going to eat? Like, this sounds like a bad idea. We have food here, like we have jobs. Like, I don't want to go with you, Moses, right? But turned out to, well, be a good, I don't want to get into that. Freedom was a good thing, that's all I'm saying. It's a good thing. It may seem scary when you have when you're a slave, but what you're holding on to is slavery. Yeah.
So Kirsty, we're talking about creativity, like everybody's afraid that AI would kind of crush our creativity, but you find it actually liberating you to be more creative?
Yeah, absolutely, like 100%.
And do you find AI helps you with the creative, like talking about filmmaking processes, like can you use it in pre-production, in production, in post-production? Is it like every stage you can apply some sort of AI specialized application?
Well, so now we're moving from specialized AI to general AI. So general AI is AI that can do many different things, like a human can. All right. And so we're sort of moving into we're kind of in between, awkward in between phase. We're not fully at general AI. We're still kind of special general or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I've discovered a lot of applications. Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah, like in prep.
No. But can you make the distinction between specialized and general? Like, what's the?
So specialized, like I'm good at noise reduction. Give me an image, I can clean up the noise. Like Topaz is an amazing specialized AI software that's out there that's like incredible at noise reduction, right? But it's a bit more generalized now because it's not just noise. Some of them there's a version that's better for faces and a version that's better for like interlaced video, but they're all kind of different sorts of specialized. Now, then you have general AI, which is what I guess when we talk about ChatGPT and large language models, we're talking about a type of general AI. Where it can do many things. So, for instance, I find large language models to be incredibly powerful. Now, it depends which. It's like if I said human beings are awesome. Well, it depends which human being, right? Like some are more awesome than others, right? So, same thing with AIs, right? It's not all AIs are created equal, right? These days, like one of the most powerful, amazing ones is not ChatGPT. It's Claude 3 Opus. By the way, here's a tip. If you go to this website, po.com, this site is, po.com, gives you access to tons of different bots, all different AIs. So you can choose there's many different kinds that you can use and talk to all of them. Some of these are image generating, some of these are, text. But the one that is the most amazing is this, and actually interestingly here in Canada, for some reason they're restricting them. It's sometimes hard to get access to. But you can get to them even if they're not in Canada through this site. So I pay the $20 a month, and my favorite one right now that scores incredibly high in the benchmarks is this Cloud 3 Opus. And I use actually Cloud 3 Opus 200K. And what this means is it's what it's really good at. So some ways I use it, right? So you can give it a screenplay. Like the 200K one, 200K corresponds to how big its memory is, right? 200,000 tokens. 200,000 tokens, a screenplay is about 30,000 tokens. So that means it can take an entire screenplay, it can, in theory, rewrite a screenplay, or you can give it a rewrite and ask it, is it better? You can have a long conversation with it, and it'll remember, or keep track of the whole thing.
For big Disney productions and
Yeah.
whatnot, they do massive plate shots where they will take 100 extras and they'll digitalize them and rework them, and that used to be my job. And what you said earlier was, well, we have the rights to that, so therefore we can do that. And I'm sure you know about scanners, right? Scanners on set,
Sure.
a thing, you scan everyone's likeness. It's an extra thing. I don't see how that doesn't completely get rid of extras.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. So that's great. So have you seen Ben-Hur?
Yeah.
Okay, so they had a lot of extras back then, right? We don't do that anymore. So like that changed a while ago. Like you're right, we've been using visual effects to multiply, not necessarily scanning them, but like get 100 extras and then move them here, move them there. Or we've been using VisFX for crowd, like Peter Jackson. This is not AI, just VisFX, like using Houdini to generate crowds of people. This has been done, quite a bit. It's actually now de rigueur. Like any of these big army scenes now. I mean, unless you're Spielberg, you're working with like avatars. You're working with Unreal Engine, or you're working with Houdini, or you're working with all these platforms to generate these things. So this kind of change has always happened, right? Like this kind of jobs disappearing. Like when, again, to talk about fire, like there used to be this awesome job called firekeeper. Before you knew how to make fire, right? There's a person whose job it was to take care of the fire. Like they had to keep it alive, and they had this very special, I imagine, role in the group, in the band, but then all of a sudden someone figured out how you could just make fire, and that person's job and the meaning of their role was suddenly gone, right? So this is the nature of progress, right? And then I've been an extra. I spent a year as an extra early in my career, and it was a bit fun, but it wasn't the most satisfying thing. I don't really, the only reason you probably, I bet you're not passionate about being an extra. It's just something you do because
I used to be wrangler for all of them. So,
right.
I mean,
but even wrangling it, right? There's probably something else you'd rather be doing if you could do anything you wanted.
I completely agree with you.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of fat that needs to be trimmed down on set as far as crew members and everything else that can go and will go. But the question I have is that like, it starts there, but the way it seems to turn into a very incredibly slippery slope, because the stuff that we can see with Sora at the moment, now you don't even need actors.
That's right. You can just go straight from you can just generate.
It feels like the first thing to go is going to be commercials and music videos, because who really cares about that?
Studio executives, marketing executives, CEOs, lawyers, financial advisors. These are the ones who are actually the first to go. Middle managers, all this like
Don't say agents. Don't say agents.
Agents, a lot of to me as a creative, these people, no offense, have always kind of seemed like parasitical to me. Like they're like this load on us that we have to we need to these executives and these other people. Like they don't. I'm delighted to see them replaced. And so the question I think you have is like, how am I going to eat? It's not like, what about my poor job that's going away? It's like, how am I going to eat? Sorry, just make it short. And then we'll
finish that question first.
Yeah. Well, it's a complicated question because it involves going into monetary theory, the nature of money and economics, which I'm not as much of an expert in, but I have studied a bit and I can talk about. But it requires looking at that to really get what's possible, I think. Anyways.
Yeah. I think my question is, if I have one question, which would be, how do you see the nature of production companies going in the future? Personally, I feel like whenever Sora comes out and it's accessible to the public,
Yeah.
it feels like it's going to be licensed only to a select few who can afford it, in which case you might have AI production houses that could do commercials or music videos for essentially half the price.
Or 1,000th the price.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, listen. The end version of this is you have a TV set or whatever. Your experience of entertainment as a consumer is that it's like it creates what you want. Like Daddy would tell you a story at night, and you'd say, "Daddy, I wanted to have dragons," and suddenly there'd be dragons in the story.
That seems to
right?
be where ChatGPT is now, though.
No, but I'm just
It
saying, this
doesn't
is
feel
like, when we're
right.
talking about fully generative gaming and fully generative environments, and that's the future. So like all of us, in a sense, could be gone because your TV will understand what you want. It'll get to know you. It's like, oh, I know what you want. It'll put that on the screen for you.
Can I ask you one
Yeah.
more question?
Yeah.
Sorry. Do you think that in itself might blow out the entire environment? So if you look at social media as a whole, Instagram Reels, TikTok Reels, most of the reason that people are watching these things is because they think that they're real. So right now, most people are getting slightly turned off because of the amount of AI and the amount of synthetic stuff that's propagating social media. Once this stuff really takes hold and it becomes 100% of social media, I guess the question I'm asking myself is, it might possibly end the whole craze altogether? You know? Maybe?
I think that, you know, the extent to which we relate to what's on Instagram as real is problematic as it is, you know, or even documentaries or the news. It has nothing to do with AI. Like, my dad was in, you know, the news. That's what he did. He was in the news for his whole career, and I can tell you, you weren't getting the whole truth from them, right?
Sure.
There's constantly spin and lying and misinformation. So I think another way of looking at it is if we get to have a more sophisticated look towards media, and we just instead of relating to it like it's true, we relate to it like it's created, which is actually the correct way to relate to any shot, then that's actually a much more healthy way to interact with media, I would argue.
But if everything is fake, then surely you tune out.
If you say so. I mean, that's what movies are. Like, you think it's real? You're watching Oppenheimer. You're actually watching Oppenheimer. That's Cillian Murphy. That's not. It's all made up. None of that stuff ever happened. It's all fake, right? You see 24 frames, and you think you just saw a second. It's not. It's all a con. Yeah, we're gonna move on. There's a lot to talk about, but let's move on. Sorry, you had your hand up really stiff.
Yeah, so obviously what you discussed is currently the subject of the strikes. As we know, SAG-AFTRA is talking about protecting their actors. And then we had Gabe Newell, who is the CEO of Valve, start putting in laws that companies cannot use AI that they did not create themselves.
That's not what happened.
Anyway, Steam's starting to put in AI regulations. Yeah. Congress is going to be voting on AI regulations in the near future. Elon Musk said within 10 years or so, AI could start toppling governments, including, say, Communist China. He gave a warning to Xi that if a dictator disappeared, nobody would really notice because AI can computer generate them. AI can deepfake already. We've seen tons of Putin and Trump doing stuff and Biden and Trump doing stuff. Now, we all know regulations are coming. It's been talked about that copyright laws are going to be changed so that AI would have to be public domain and human-generated content would be separate. We know that regulations are coming. And so some of the things that you've talked about, obviously SAG-AFTRA and our unions and guilds are voting about banning right now. What do you think is going to happen if we continue to steal performers? I mean, you said the actor would be...
Yeah, I think this is the thing. There's a lot of misinformation out there. So there's a lot included in what you're saying. And so when in a movie, right? If I'm working with an actor, I'm licensing. Like if you read the contract, right? It says I'm licensing your likeness and your voice, your likeness. I'm licensing it for use in the movie, right? And then we have a contract for that, right? None of that changes with AI. Now, with AI, I can also generate people. I don't need your face to be an extra. I can just generate a million people. I can generate a million people who none of them exist, right? So I'm free of that if I want to be, right? You're right that unions and workers are threatened by this. Like jobs, I don't want to mince any words here. Jobs are threatened. Like it is the end of jobs. Do not for a second imagine that what I'm saying is somehow we're going to keep having jobs somehow. Like, so yes, at some point, not yet, they haven't like made an issue yet, but at some point they're going to freak out and they're going to try to fight it. And every union is. Like they're going to hate it when the robots are available or taking over on the lines. Like they're going to, like, I know we're all upset about creative people, but like, what about the cashiers? What about the truck drivers? You know, what about the miners? You know, what about every other job? Like, are you just worried about yourselves? Like, this is all of humanity is getting this treatment. Okay, it's not just actors, right? So I think we need to look a little bit less, my opinion, at like, oh, me and my acting world, but look at like how all of humanity is being impacted here. And so how is this going to work, right? The question is like, we still need to eat, right? We still need homes. We need opportunities, right? So I'm going to point you to this thing called modern monetary theory. Okay, so you have to look at David Graeber wrote a great book called Debt. This gets a little bit academic. You look at like the history of money. Like we have been propagandized about what money is. Okay, we think that there's somehow like a fixed amount of money out there, and that like somehow if you print more money, like money loses value. Like that's just not how money works. Money is a medium of exchange. When there was a time when there was no money. Like money didn't exist. And then suddenly they started printing money. It's not like all of a sudden, so we went from 0 money to like 1,000 money. That happened in history. It's not like money somehow went down in value. We keep on printing more money. It doesn't go down in value. What determines price is supply versus demand, right? So it's like, if I know it's a big conversation, right? And it's hard for me to cover it all here. And I would like to point you to, so I can point you to books, or a really phenomenal documentary. I think it's called Finding the Money, which like does a great job of laying it out. But the important thing to understand is that money is basically a construct. It's created by governments. Okay, it's just completely created out of thin air. Okay, and they use it all the time. We use it all. We create money all that we want to bomb places, to destroy bridges in Iraq. No problem finding money for that. But if you want to find money for poor people, for people to eat, we can't afford it. Why is that? It's not because we don't have enough money, because we do. The reason is, I know I said there's a lot to cover here. The reason is because we need poor people. If you don't have a bunch of poor people, why would anyone go be an extra? Why would anyone go have a job? Why would anyone go work in a mine? Like you need people who are living under a bridge to scare the rest of us into action. So the labor economy capitalism demands requires a pool of poverty, of poor people suffering to make the rest of us run on the hamster wheel. And that's the purpose of it. And we'll never solve these problems of poverty as long as they're needed to keep the engine going. But once, and I'm convinced of this, once like we don't need humans to show up because we have robots and AIs and Jeff Bezos doesn't need humans to work in his warehouses anymore. They're all going to be fine for printing money. They'll be delighted. It'll be just like CERB. Suddenly, like, oh, COVID, we're going to start cutting checks for everyone. Yeah, okay, go ahead. Sorry, that was a lot for me.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to come to the mic? Oh, okay.
I've had my hand up for.
Oh yeah, you have. I'm sorry. Why don't you go first? Yeah.
I apologize. Also, really quick question.
Yeah, good for you to speak up.
And if you don't mind answering quickly as well, I want to see.
I'll try. Sorry.
But the question is just in regards to what you said about, doing ADR with AI, adding like a couple things here and there, and you're saying like the actor is not going to notice. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. You have a right to their likeness. And my question is that
sure, that's kind of what I said. Yeah.
You make this sort of ethical judgment for yourself, but at the end of the day, before we had AI, actors could choose to remove themselves from scenes that they weren't comfortable with. Choose not to.
No, they could not. Absolutely not. You can't.
I have like physical autonomy, is what I'm saying. And
Then I replace you. Because you're an actor, you have to do what you're told. That's what would happen in a real show. Yeah, no, you have to do what you're told. Yeah, you don't have control. Yeah, no, you're there, you're under contract. Like it's a hierarchy, right? This is the thing. This is what I'm talking about. The poison of a hierarchy. You don't have autonomy. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this is the first part, just a statement, or that we all choose the jobs that we want, whether or not you choose a job that you like or not. Doesn't mean somebody else doesn't love their job and do it just for the fact that they love to do it and they don't care how little amount of money that they make or whatever.
Yes.
They do it. I did background for 21 years. I still do it because I love it. I'm an actor. I don't hardly make any money except for this year. I made more money than last year. But I don't do it for the money. I do it because of the humanity of telling a story and to be a human being and to have it continue.
Yeah.
So my question is, and with all the jobs in the world that AI is going to affect, how do we keep it from taking our humanity away? Because that is what we don't want.
Yeah, I agree.
Humanity.
No, I agree. That's great. It's great. I don't think it can take it away. Like it's our humanity. Like how is it going to take your humanity away?
Can you tell a story? How are you telling a story with humanity if
Tell a story.
is not telling it?
You can tell a story. You'll have all the resources you want to tell any story you want.
Where's the
Like, that's the thing. Is like your humanity is you have the opportunity to express your humanity.
Is humanity comes from knowledge and living.
Yeah,
AI doesn't live.
Yeah, your knowledge. You can you are now free in a post-singularity world. You're free to express yourself. Like, think about it this way, right? There used to be no cameras, right? If you wanted to make an image, you had to paint, right? And there used to be no paints you could even buy at the store. You had to grind them out. You had to get lapis lazuli and make it. Any artist who saw you just go buy paints instead of make them would have scorn. What kind? Are you literally buying a pre-made canvas? You're not stretching it yourself? Like you call yourself an artist? Like there's been an evolution, right? And then cameras came out, and painters were like, "This is an abomination." There's no humanity, there's no creativity in photography. Now we think photography is an art form. So the point is you as a human being engage with the technology. You go into a room with it, and you mess around with it, and then you say, "Look what I made," and you come out with this thing, and you say, "This, I believe, represents me." Now that thing you come out with could just be a urinal you put on a frame like the Dadaists did, right? And you say, "This is art." Or it could be something you created with AI. But if you declare it art, if you think it's important to put out there, that says something about you, and that's your humanity being expressed. So this is what I'm saying about Lissa's trip. It was actually like a freedom as a creator, because if you actually want to go and create and express yourself, there's all these constraints you have.
Is AI going to keep flaws in there? Flaw is part of
Yeah, no,
human.
you put it.
AI is not going to put flaws.
Of course.
Okay, so I think
all the AI generated photos that have no flaws.
Yeah, no.
I think okay.
If you
so,
want it to be flawed, you can have it be flawed.
Yeah.
I
I
can show you an
think
example.
what would help,
Yeah.
because Laura is an actor, and I think in our conversation you mentioned the comparison between using AI to directing actors, and I think that would be really clarifying here.
Right. Okay, so how does AI create, so this is a really interesting, this is one of my favorite shots, by the way, that Sora created, because I think it's fascinating. So again, this is entirely artificial, generated. There's no performance, but there is a performance. Okay, this is a close-up and there's clearly a performance going on here of this man. And I'll tell you, as a filmmaker, a director who's tried to get a close-up with emotion, a subtle close-up with emotion, and stick a camera in an actor's face, it's not trivial. Okay, it takes something to get a real performance out of someone. So this tells me that there is actually humanity is somehow being expressed. This is, and how is it? This is actually really, maybe this is for later, and issue question, but about the prompting. So what I found is one reason I think I get good results with AI and with voice generation is because of my experience as a director. Because I speak to the AI like I speak to a director, like I speak to an actor. Because every actor, you gotta kind of get where they're coming from and what language and what their context is.
Yeah.
And you gotta give them a backstory,
Yeah.
and you gotta give them an intention. You don't just say, hey, walk in there and sit down, right? That's terrible direction. You say, you know, you're angry with your mother and, you know, your foot is hurt and, you know, you're really thirsty. Go sit down, right? Or something like that, right? Or you want to get that guy to pay for your bill or something. And you go sit down. And so if I just say go sit down, you're going to give a very wooden, generic, boring performance. But unless you're building all that yourself. But if I give you all that backstory, you're going to give something that's human, etc. And so you can work, when you're creating with it, you can build all that into it. And you can develop really complex, humanistic things that express, you know, anything you want. This is what I've discovered. This is a promise I'm making. It's hard to say until you play with it yourself, but that's what I found to be true. Yeah.
There's so more questions.
So many questions.
So,
Yeah, why don't you?
Yeah.
I have a quick question. Last year,
You already
there
asked
was
the question.
several scientists that talked about within 5 years we won't need AI managers. AI will be able to manage themselves, and we won't need producers. We won't need anybody talking or prompting the AI. AI will be able to prompt themselves and create their own content without any creatives involved. Midjourney had a leak that AI stole from 16,000 different artists, including Disney and Nintendo, whose lawyers are looking into that, of course. But where do you talk about copyright law, intellectual property theft?
It's a really important question. Okay, so I've had an issue with this idea of like IP theft for a long time. So if you watch The Bicycle Thief, right, the problem in The Bicycle Thief is not that the thief made a copy of the guy's bicycle and now the thief has a bicycle. The problem is that the guy who had a bicycle doesn't have a bicycle anymore. Like the bicycle is gone and now the guy is that's the problem. So when you're making a copy of something, that's called copyright infringement. It's not theft. Okay, so that's to me been legal overreach from the start. I don't like lawyers penetrating the creative space. Okay, so you want to call it copyright infringement, fine, but you cannot call it theft because I still have the thing. Okay, so you cannot steal anything from me. You can't steal an idea from me because I still have the idea. Okay, you can copy the idea and run off. Well, it's not theft. I'm just saying you copied it, you call it copyright infringement. That's a crime, but it's not theft. So I want to make a distinction because theft is different. It's like you don't have the thing anymore at all. Like if I steal your jacket, Shahar, I steal your hat, you won't have a hat anymore.
Stealing the potential of earning.
Potential of earning. Yeah, now you're getting vague because the potential is not a real thing.
You're making a movie in one language. If it's made with AI, somebody can take the movie and translate it into another language and make money that you supposed to.
Yes, and that happens all the time, right? So, like for instance, you can like a fistful of dollars, right? Or your Jimbo, right? Kurosawa makes your Jimbo. You know, Hollywood goes out and makes, or Sergio Leone goes out and makes a fistful of dollars. It's a shot for shot, almost copy of the thing.
And what happened?
Whatever. Who cares? We have 2 great movies.
They paid it. They paid
Great. Okay, so that's copyright infringement. It's not theft. We still have your Jimbo. Your Jimbo's not gone, right? It's important. I want to make that distinction, number 1. Number 2, copyright infringement means I'm making a copy of the thing, okay? So like, your Jimbo and the Fistful of Dollars is very much like a copy. It's a bit different, but there's a lot of things that are copy. There's a lot of questions. We're going to have some other people. But again, good luck trying to get, I invite you to work with Midjourney to try to get it to reproduce an existing image and try to make a copy of it. You will have a very hard time.
That's possible.
It's almost impossible. You will make all kinds of variations. It's going to look different. You might say, oh, this is influenced by this or influenced by that. And you're welcome to say that. And that has never in the history of art been considered copyright infringement, being influenced by someone, right? Picasso was influenced by African art. Picasso was influenced by Impressionists. Picasso was influenced by Braque. Picasso was probably influenced by people he met in a coffee shop and had an interesting conversation with. Picasso was influenced by physics and new ideas in math that like blew his mind and then showed up as Cubism. Who do we give credit? Why do we just give all the credit to the white man Picasso? Like all these other people's ideas, he stole them and transmuted them in his work to create something new. But yet we don't say that he stole those ideas, right? And by the way, since we're talking about Picasso and theft, Picasso has that famous saying, which is that, mediocre artists copy and great artists steal. So, our ideas about theft and intellectual property have very much been built up by, I would say, a legal profession. And by the way, who owns intellectual property in our world is typically companies, it's not the creators. Okay, so you want to talk about being screwed, like look at the music industry, like me, myself as a writer of movies, like I don't own, the revenues don't go back to me in my movies, they go to these other companies. So we're just like spewing out, it's these corporate companies that want to preserve, like what do they have? They have their IP, that's all they have to value themselves. So they're just trying to, this is all propaganda, this IP concept,
So,
yeah.
so with that in mind, just one last question.
Sorry,
Where do you
Rafi,
see-
hold on, we'll talk after, so let's give somebody a chance.
We had so many people.
Okay,
say-
Rafi, go ahead.
Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit. Copyright, let's leave that behind for
Yeah.
a second. Can you draw us a picture of the world? You say 5 years all jobs are gonna be gone. Draw us a positive picture of the world, let's say in 10 years.
Yes.
Uh,
Please, let me.
Yeah, I would. But but make it comprehensive, consistent, like a world that actually can work.
Yeah, so we're talking about a world where, in a world where AI has taken over, what are we looking at? So, yeah, you're right, there are no more jobs, okay? So what happens is, but we also don't need poor people anymore. And actually, instead of having poor people who are upset and break things and look ugly and make us sad, right? We'd rather turn them into consumers. So we're now, the government now writes checks or issues money or credits or whatever to all human beings. If you have a social insurance number or social security number, whatever, you get a check. Like CERB, every week you get money. And where does that money go? Of course it goes right into the pocket of Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates. It goes right back to them and that makes them happy, Elon Musk, so they continue to be billionaires and good for them, right? But we're all consumers now. And all the work, so you have at home, okay? You have a robot, almost everyone, like those of you who have phones and those of you who have cars, also have robots. Okay, those robots will fold the laundry for you. And they can watch your kids, or they can fix your roof, or do your plumbing, or handle your accounting, or they can controversially, they might do security. What do we do? Art. This is what's really exciting. So humanity no longer has to have a job, right? You are now free. So I look at things like Minecraft and games. Like Minecraft, you can play. Those of you guys know what Minecraft is? Yeah. So you can play in survival mode, which is fun, right? You can play in creative mode. You can play in adventure mode. I think to me, the human existence, I think of it more as a return to the Garden of Eden. Okay, like in the old. Let's go back to some Jewish law. In the Old Testament, right? Genesis. We're in the Garden of Eden, and as far as I can tell, the only job humans have is to name things. It's like, this is called this, and this is called that, and that's apparently their job. And then, the snake and Eve, and she eats the wrong fruit, and we're punished. And we're not told, God doesn't say, now you will get to leave Eden, and you're going to have these great careers, it'll give your life meaning, and your life's going to be awesome. He says, you're going to have to toil by the sweat of your brow. It's a curse. Okay? We've gotten all twisted. Jobs are a curse. In our freedom, we get the freedom to love and play and eat from the fruit of the tree of knowledge, learn, explore, adventure, dance, create. That's what you're going to be doing, right? These are the things that you want to do anyways, the things you do on your time off. Spend time with your families, engage in some cool hobby, go travel somewhere. That's the stuff you want to do anyway when you get vacation. That's what, we do this already.
Allowed to travel?
Why not? Yeah, you travel more than ever. So to me, and then hold on, the other thing. So we're talking about incredible increases in all kinds of technologies, including energy and science. So what is predictable, not by me, but by other experts that I pay attention to, is we're talking about within 5 years, and I know it sounds crazy, so take it with whatever grain of salt you want, but we're talking about curing all diseases, we're talking about the end of aging, Okay? We're talking about some very, very exciting things for humanity. We've all been fighting over this tiny little pebble in the void. Like billions of people struggling and dying of like viruses, murdering each other over resources and lies. Like it's been a horrific existence. You know, what's possible for us is to kind of leave the cradle and get to explore, you know, the galaxy, have really extended lifespans, be able to create and love on levels that we've never done before, can only imagine. So I'm very excited to love and play and, you know, be 25 again. Like, I'm really looking forward to that myself, yeah. Another question?
What about challenge and self-worth? If you're playing those
Yeah.
games, what self-worth are you getting? And challenge.
Yeah.
You have no challenge. Life becomes really boring.
But you need to hire people to make the games.
So this is, no, the games can be generated too, same as the movies. But anyway, yeah, you're talking about, okay, the questions of self-worth, these are profound philosophical questions, okay, that we encounter as humans. Like as a middle-aged man, I've had to deal with existentialist angst, right? Having a job doesn't save me from that. Maybe it keeps me busy enough that I don't have to think about it. But it's still a problem I have to solve. What is my self-worth? What is the point of all this?
A lot
Like,
of times when I'm working and I'm doing Foley and stuff, I really enjoy it.
yeah, because it gives you meaning.
Sense of it.
Yeah, you're part of a hierarchy. I love being a lamp operator.
An accomplishment.
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
So how does
So
that tie in with this whole?
I think there's other places you can find accomplishment, and it's actually much more fulfilling to find accomplishment. I argue that when you're like able to create entirely yourself, like that accomplishes much richer than what you do kind of like for the man. It's just, you're right. I mean, listen, it's not unlike, again, when we were slaves and someone said, hey, we're gonna go off in the desert. I'm like, I have a good job, I'm a bricklayer. Like, what am I gonna go do in the desert? I'm nobody now. Like, but I'm saying you should still go.
This is just your opinion.
Okay,
This
so
is not-
just-
This is not fact yet.
That's right.
So this is just your opinion.
Yes,
So-
just a guy talking. This is
Well,
just a guy
no,
talking. You're right.
I'm trying to be fair.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Yeah, it's just a guy
Okay,
talking.
so the voice of admin talking. It's 9:30. We have 3 more questions. These 3 people have been hanging their hand out for so long. 3 more questions, okay, because it's 9:30. And after those 3 questions,
Hit me after up close.
we can mingle and we can talk some more. And also, let's have a show of hands if anybody wants to have a follow-up masterclass online with Jeffrey, where we can talk on specific issues related to AI. We can make it like the spiritual, the scientific, the practical, the whatever, creative. We can make different versions of it. If you are interested, and pay for it, because it's his time, you know. You're taking away from his family. So,
We don't
yeah.
need Jeffrey for that. We have AI.
That's right. You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay, so nobody's interested?
I am.
Okay.
Let's take the questions.
Okay, perfect. Questions, Lee.
Yeah, okay, so there's been a lot of energy in the room tonight.
Yeah.
Negative thoughts.
Shots for everyone. No.
On AI.
You said it, you can't.
Yeah, well, when it comes to AI and stuff, there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of this. I'm a writer, so of course when all that came out, I was like, oh shit. But then I was like, what is the possibility? And like, you know, how would you help steer people in that direction without causing, you know, because people are resistant, right? And like, people don't know what they don't know. And like, this unknown thing, yeah, it's scary. But it's thrilling and it's exciting and it's life. And I'm glad jobs are going to get taken away. Then people can step into entrepreneurship, into working for themselves, creating more, like you're saying. Like, this is a freedom movement that we're a part of. And, you know, I know there's people that have resistance and stuff and have this sort of fixed mindset. But how would you, because I used to get really frustrated and not saying anything, so I don't want to argument. But how would you positively / knowledgeably discuss this kind of stuff without it turning into like a riot?
Yeah, this is a good test right here. I've seen it turn into a riot.
Yeah.
I think the main thing is to get, I hope that you get, that I'm coming at this from a humanistic standpoint. Like, what's exciting about AI for me is not the potential for profit for like corporations. What's exciting about AI for me is the democratization of these technologies where like children in Sudan can like make a movie, that we would never have seen before, right? Or like people that everyone is going to have, that you can have access to engineering technology anywhere in the world. Like you can have, you know, Elon Musk already has this stuff. Like he's got the best lawyers, the best engineers, and all that at his beck and call, right? But what if we could all have access to that, right? And that's what that is. It's not just for the corporations, it's not just for the billionaires. This is like, the nature of AI is it's for everyone, which is really, there's the open source movement is astounding. It's just like one step behind like OpenAI and these private companies. There's all kinds of incredible, like Stable Diffusion is an open source model, and it's completely competitive with Midjourney and DALL-E. And you know, Sora at first, as you say, is just going to be for the studios probably, but very soon there's going to be open source models that are completely competitive for it, that are going to be for everyone, that nobody owns, right? The hacker community, and eventually the hacker community fueled, because AI is really good at coding also, fueled by AI technology, is going to, you know, these things, people love to give this away. You know, like human beings love to create something and actually give it away. There's like, you look at Wikipedia, you look at YouTube, like people are constantly putting up stuff just to like give it away to people, have people show it, like, and get, you know, posts like Facebook is all made of stuff people just give away, all that content, or just giving it away for free. And it's not a problem, it's actually a freedom. Like you don't have to worry about, will this make money? You can just speak from your heart because you're not, it's not tied into an economic need. So, to me, it's a very promising world of self-expression. And I think human self-expression is a good thing. Some people think it's a bad thing, too many people talking. Like, I like a lot, I think I'm in favor of people talking.
I think it's an adjustment, second question.
Cool. As an actor,
Just louder, please.
Sure. As an actor, contextualize it. I mean, I'm already unemployed, so I don't think I'll be too affected when AI comes into play. I'll still probably be unemployed. But how do you think...
Well, no, though, because you can create now.
Yeah. How can, in my case, how can an actor kind of prepare for this? How do, with all these jobs changing and people losing their positions, how does one prepare for this?
Well,
Start producing.
yeah, create content.
Change your job.
Yeah, I know. I hate that word content. I hate that word content, but like that's what it is. It's like it almost. Like I'm saying content because it almost doesn't matter what it is. It could be a TikTok dance. It could be a joke. It could be a documentary. It could be a feature film. It could be like your life story. It could be all kinds of things. It almost doesn't like. It could be an unboxing videos. It could be an OnlyFans account. It could be anything. But like you create that content, you're now at the seat. Like that's very creatively fulfilling. You know, you can work with friends to create content. And just, you can deploy these tools. Like your iPhone that you probably have, or some smartphone you have, right there has all the tools to make a movie, right? Like you can shoot and post it and distribute it off of your iPhone, right? This is something that it's the end of labs, you know? In the 90s, I was a cinematographer in New York. We shoot on film, we'd go to DuArt, there's a whole lab, or Technicolor, there's a whole lab full of like 80 people. A lot of them were extremely good at their jobs, were very highly paid to process film. Those jobs don't exist anymore, they're gone. No one's really crying about it. It's given us more creative freedom. The fact that we can make movies without having to go to a lab has freed us up massively.
Also creation.
Yes, you just
comes from
go,
pain,
yeah, I say
right?
go and play.
Exploit that, right?
What's that?
Creation comes from pain, real creation,
Pain.
from suffering, from frustration, from like all the bad things could lead to creating something interesting. So use that frustration.
That's very romantic. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Jeffrey. Short, concise. Do you see AI replacing editors, and how soon?
Well, it's going to, because it's not so much, I mean, yeah, you could kind of like build a thing like smart editing, but it's just going to be, it's going to happen faster than that, I think. It's just going to be, we're just going to generate the whole movie. So it's going to replace cinematographers and editors and like a lot of these positions all at once. Extras, you know. It's going to replace a lot of set decorators, you know, set painters, production design, I mean, all of them. Boom ops.
I actually,
Yeah.
I had a camera, I was filming, my friend brought a cab, New York cab that he had a movie. and we just did some shots of it. And all of this 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, all of a sudden GoPro sends me a note saying, we created this video. And I looked at it and music, and it was actually pretty good. That was 5 years ago. It put it together, and I didn't even ask it to do that.
Yeah, your iPhone will give you cuts of your stuff.
Now it's more advanced. But back then, it was 5 years ago, and I was shocked at what it created.
Sure.
I didn't even ask for it. It was like, wow, this is amazing. So.
Right.
Any more questions? Okay.
Just
I
a
think.
suggestion. I'm sure you heard about the roar among the actors about how they overshadowed by influencers.
Yeah.
During the last Oscar award season, some of the actresses said their children recognize the influencers, but they don't know who is the actress on that film or whatever. The reality that you described will be the continuance of that reality of the influencers would be the new creators. Everybody could create his own stories, but some stories will be more watched and viewed. And
Popular.
in 50 years, all of those real human influencers will be replaced by AI replica of
50?
some corporations.
Oh, not just corporations. I mean, like, you know, I think people will create. You might create one that could get popular. Like,
Yeah, but
you know, I mean, it's just the magic of what makes something popular is sort of like, you know.
So, the like button's going to become really important.
Okay, that's the last one.
Right?
The like
Because
button, yes.
The more likes you got,
That's your creative
the more
tool.
the more you feel you've done something.
Yeah. Upvotes.
I mean, like, whatever.
So social media score.
One last one. Sorry, this one's been bugging me, and you speak of this free unity between AI and getting rid of the gatekeepers, and I totally agree with you for the beginning of what we're about to see. But this feels like it's, you know, the year before the iPhone and the year before social media.
Yeah.
Now, if you can use that as a barometer in any way, well, where has most of that ended up? It was a great idea, but for the most part, it seems to have been kind of co-opted by, social media is a great example, co-opted into just whatever the worst base human impulse is what makes the most money. You have the most free market capitalist idea. You deviate to the most evolved idea. And I guess my question is, how do you juxtapose that, like, that utopianist idea of everybody gets to do what they want versus everybody losing their jobs and what we can see in the past as happened?
So that was my final question. What's the worst case scenario?
Well, I'm not sure that's what he asked, but the worst case scenario is extinction. Okay, mass extinction. Everyone dies. That's always the worst case scenario. Like, we're all dead, right? That's easy to say. So worst. I mean, like, somebody could create like some horrific virus in their basement or something that like kills everybody. I don't think so, because to me, like, the answer to all this, all these concerns, there's the thing in Terminator, like Skynet. Skynet's gonna make a thing, and they decide, you know what, these humans suck, and we're gonna kill them all, right? And that's James Cameron's Terminator, and that's been a concern. But here's the thing, here's what changes all that, okay, is to understand that, again, there's not just one AI, there's many, and there's an open source movement, okay? So you actually, if you look at Poe.com, you'll see there's like easily over 100 different AIs you can interact with, and they're different, okay? Some of them are like easier to make them do evil things, like if you want to know how to break into a car, or how to make a pipe bomb, or how to make crystal meth, some of them you can talk them into doing that, right? Other ones are like, won't do it under any condition. They'll make sure that George Washington is like Benetton color. Like, he won't do white Nazis. Like, the Nazis are all like, make sure that we have some black Nazis in there too. It's very anti-racist, right? So there's a whole range of different, so you're right. There are gonna be some like corporate AIs that are going to make sure you, like the propaganda line, like whatever the government wants you to think, like that's what it's going to say. It's going to be like Pravda on steroids. I think you're definitely going to have that, but then you're also going to have this myriad of like other ones that you can interact with. And that's what changes the whole thing. Like if you have a crazy person making a virus somewhere, well, there's other ones who are going to try to stop that virus. And again, this is where I think what's important, and one of the problems you have in social media that you're pointing to is you have monopolies. So you have like, there's like just a few companies that are, you have Facebook, so that you don't have this like multitude of social media that everyone can share on. There's just Facebook, or Twitter, or Instagram, which is Facebook, right? It's just, that's all there is, right?
You don't think that that's going to consolidate
That's the problem.
down eventually?
No, because again, like, is there only one human being? There's 8 billion human beings. Like, are they going to consolidate down into one? No. We're all separate humans, right? And same thing with the AIs. They're all separate and distinct and different, and you're never going to be able to snuff them out. There's always going to be more and more, and you can build more, and it's going to be trivial to make more. And we're looking at a future 10 years down the line where there's trillions upon trillions of, like, humanity is trillions large, but maybe there's only like a few billion that are organic humans, right? And there's trillions of synthetic humans.
Do you think we're better off with social media now than we were before?
That's a big question.
It's the same question with AI, though, right?
No, it isn't, because social media, problems with social media, I would argue, are government interference and capitalism interference and billionaire interference and advertisers who are trying to interfere, and AI doesn't need any of that stuff.
Sora's not open to us.
Yeah, I know, but because Sora is a monopoly right now. There's only one Sora. But like 5 years from now, there's going to be a billion of them. There's going to be many, many, many different ones. The open source movement again. So that's where I take hope. It's like, instead of a monopoly, you're going to have many. And that's the thing to change when you're imagining it. Think of a world of many, not just one. Anyway, that's, I think, the end, right? Should we talk about some tips? If for those of you who are interested, there's some tools that have been very effective. I don't know if I should share about them or not. Okay. So I'm a big fan. One thing I love right now is Suno AI. So it creates songs, right? It's a really it's super fun to create. Now again, this is kind of like evil to talk about. But Suno.ai is an incredible song creator. You can have it create music for you. You have 11 Labs. It's incredible at dialogue generation.
How do you spell Suno?
S-U-N-O.
Suno. Can you bring it up?
Yeah, I'll bring it up for you. Here, let me see. I have it here somewhere.
Is that the one that made the Beatles?
No. That was all noise reduction in the Beatles thing, which is extraordinary noise reduction. But that's not. Not this. Not that. Oh, where's my Suno? Hold on a second. So 11 Labs is incredible for voice generation. So I've used it for documentaries, which I find this is one of the most controversial uses of it, is to, for talking heads, and then they cut away, and we're looking at pictures and we think they're still talking, but now it's like an AI voice. This is something some people have been doing they've asked me to do it. I'm like, this is a bad idea, and I've made them promise that they are going to go re-record it with the actual subject, but they use it in editorial, yeah.
Yeah, well, but in the past, in a similar way, we've done like Frankenstein. We take little clips of people and construct
That's right.
sentence.
That's right. That's absolutely right. So here's Suno. And there's a song. Let me see. I create some songs for today. Let me see. What does it say? Is there anything that says Booze and Schmooze? I can't read from here. Down. This one? Let me do likes here. Was that Booze and Schmooze?
Yeah. There's a place called Vancouver where the stars and booze and shoes is where all the cool kids find empty.
I have so many. I made like 15 of them.
Because I can put it on stories.
Jeffery Lando's in the house, spinning AI film. The crowd is buzzing.
They what?
Some of the more popular songs, like they had a famous Drake mimic and a famous Beatles mimic. What programs are making them?
You'd have to look, and like you have to look at when they made it also. So I didn't look at the Drake thing specifically. I remember when that came out. You know, I can sample Drake's voice.
The Beatles one,
There's some voice changer stuff, but like to me, this is kind of some of the best stuff right now. There's another one here.
Yeah. Raindance March Booze in Vancouver BC, bringing anything rules. Nadia, she's the queen, organizing the scene. And Jeffery Lando, talking AI.
So that's fun. So that's Suno. There's 11 Labs who's incredible again for voice generation. Actually can do pretty good job in sound effects. They can't do Foley. It's not looking at the picture and doing it to picture, but it's not far. We're very close to that, you know. There are some models where you can give it a shot and say I want to hear this aspect of the shot. Like I want to hear the footsteps, and it'll look at the shot and give you the footsteps that line up, that are the right kind. It's like the gravel footsteps with the man feet.
People don't just go like this, they twist.
No, I know. And listen, you're right. Like right now, it's sort of like good, and there's people who are great at things, right? And the people who are great at a thing are going to do better than what it can do right now. So there's no question if you're
better. I mean, the thing is that what I do now is what I call organic.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I don't want to threaten you.
Compared to someone taking a sound effect off a CD or a library and throwing it in there, I can go in and I can put in an extra little class.
Yeah, and film is better. But I haven't shot film for a very long time because the economics don't make sense anymore. Yeah, but I mean, all I'm saying is that it doesn't have to be better than you, better than me, to make me irrelevant economically. All it's got to be is good enough to make me economic.
They don't care about the sound, the low budget film, as long as it's there.
Exactly. That's what you do. So 11 Labs. Now for image generation, you've heard of Midjourney, you've heard of DALL-E 3. These are excellent. You know, there's other more advanced stuff called Comfy UI, which makes use. You're familiar with Comfy UI?
I'm familiar with Midjourney. I have a subscription, but what I can't figure out, maybe you can help me with this, is you see all these Instagram reels of them slowly turning it into a video. I'm not sure if that's just multiple images.
Yeah, you can't do that in Midjourney. So for video generation, this is probably the leading platform right now until Sora comes out is Runway ML.
Yeah.
So Runway, I'm gonna.
Are you feeding a Midjourney image into another?
You can feed it. You can feed a Midjourney image into it, and it will. Oh no, where's that thing?
Make it track.
It will animate it. Let me see if I can find. There's no time, right?
Yeah,
so anyway, Runway ML is good for video generation right now. There's little paintbrushes. You can do really interesting work with it and animate your stills. There's, again, language models are really, because you can code in language models. And this ability to and I now solve some problems sometimes by creating little programs. Like, here's a stupid one, you did a VisFX shot. And you have all these frames, but you need to renumber them because you didn't put the right number of zeros or something. So you need to renumber 1,000 frames. And sometimes I have this renaming utility I can use to rename everything, but it's a little complicated to use. I never know exactly the nomenclature and I'm screwing up. It's annoying. But I can just write a program. I can tell the AI, write a program to renumber everything in this directory for me. And it'll spit out a custom piece of software that I can just use for that one-time use, and it'll just do it. So it's there's all these kinds of new kind of coding applications. You can use it as a coder. You have a department of software engineers working for you. Anyways, there's all kinds of interesting applications. We're done, I can tell. Thank you very much. No, I got it. Yeah, it's okay.
The location.
Anyway, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Jeffrey.